Well, that was weird. At first, chat wasn't showing up on my computer. Anyway, thanks for tuning in to another Tuesday Cruiser Chat with OTRAMM. Same as every week, no real plan, just whatever you guys want to talk about. Had a few interesting things go down at the shop this week, or I guess last week. Broke a toe last Wednesday, so I've been hobbling around with that. Picked up a Shop 80 series, well, actually an LX 450. It's rough, but it was cheap. So we finally have an 80 series to build at the shop, exactly how we would like to build one, and I'll finally be able to have something to wheel since my Forerunner has been down for the count for years, and I haven't had time to fix it. So yeah, we're going to start building the 80 sometime in the spring when we get some time. I got to start going through it and just baselining it first. So yeah, we got that going on. I finished up shooting an 80 series knuckle rebuild video this afternoon. So I've got to load all that into the computer and edit that. But hopefully that will come out well. I used 2 cameras this time, so hopefully I'll get some better footage and better audio. Trying to up the repair video game a little bit each time we do a video. And from what I've looked at so far, it looks pretty good when I came home at lunch and checked this morning's footage. So hopefully I'll have that edited and posted in the next couple of days. Trying to think if there's anything else new and exciting. Got the 80 series bumper painted last week, and it's all installed. I of course scratched it putting it on, so I'm waiting for some touch-up paint to repaint the cooler basket, because I slid it against its hinge when I was putting it all together and took a big stripe of paint off. Yeah, built another H55 split case, transfer case and transmission combo yesterday. That one's going into an FJ60 that we've got at the shop. Just waiting on a long-range gas tank to come in, and then we'll push all that back in. No, Rob B, I do not own an 80 yet. I have an 80 at the shop, but I have not paid for it yet. It's on easy payment plan. So yeah, I've actually got to pay for the 80 before we start building the 80. And Dave, Rob B is my dad, and he knows that I bought an 80 because I bought it from him. Do I recommend 4-inch Dobinson or 6-inch for 37s on an FCJ 80? I have never actually done Dobinson suspension on an 80. We've done Icon, Tough Dog, Old Man Emu, and a couple of hodgepodges, but I've never done Dobinson. So I have no experience with them. I've also never set an 80 up to run 37s. I think the biggest one a customer we've got's running is 35s. I think Richie's running 37s. Richie from Boston, who he may tune in here. If you see Richie from Boston, RFB, or Jailbreak Overlander tune in, ask again, because I'm pretty sure he's running 37s, and I'm pretty sure at one point he was running Dobinson Springs. So he would be the guy to ask. I haven't actually done that setup yet. I really like the Slinky Springs. And if I can rob a bank, that's what I'm probably going to put on the Shop 80. They ride so nice. Oh, and I mentioned it on Instagram, but I haven't mentioned it on YouTube yet. I need a name for the Shop 80 build project. So I put it out on Instagram that it needed a name, and there's pictures of it on our Instagram account. I have no idea how to put pictures into a live chat. Otherwise, I would throw pictures up and show you guys. But it's kind of that silvery, two-tone-ish LX450 color, and it is gross on the inside. I turned it on to move it around the parking lot today, and I'm pretty sure a family of mice met their demise in the blower motor because it came on high. There was kind of a thumping sound followed by a horrible smell, and now the blower motor doesn't work anymore. So it definitely needs a lot of cleaning. But it is perfect for what we're looking for to build as a shop truck. And Crash and I have been kicking around ideas, kind of thinking slinky suspension, underdrive high range gears, lower low range gears, and we'll probably build bumpers and sliders for it. And that's as far as we've gotten with the plan. Did I see the guy on Mud with 2 mufflers? I have not. The muffler we've been using is from Solo Performance, and their whole gig is like quiet horsepower. Like, I guess they do high-end luxury vehicles, and it's got a really nice tone to it, and it's about as big as you're going to fit in the stock 80 series muffler spot. But yeah, muffler, resonator, muffler sounds like way overkill. Maybe muffler, resonator. But if you use a muffler that's tuned appropriately, you should be able to get away with just a muffler. And a compact, yeah, I think worse mice than the Blue 40 in your lot, although it does smell very similar to your truck. I'm trying to think. I haven't driven it a ton on all the trucks we've done our exhaust on at the shop have all been supercharged. So you get some charger whine going down the road. But yeah, not a ton of drone on the Solo Performance muffler. It sounds really nice. Yeah, it's Solo Performance is the brand. And if memory serves, it's an STL 33. It's their Stealth 33 is the muffler we use. They've got a gajillion different models, but that was the one that fit the best in the 80 series stock location for when we were building our exhaust. They're kind of on the pricey side, but I really like the sound. Atticus, you're fine. Go lay down. Hey, go lay down. You don't need anything. And if you come out in the next couple of days, the truck that has our prototype exhaust from when we very first started doing the 80 series exhaust, it's at the shop getting a bunch of work. So you could hear it. Otherwise, I've got some clips on our website, but they're only at idle and kind of wrapping the throttle. I don't have any actual cruising sound bites. But yeah, I've been real happy with them. Yeah, we'll be there. We'll be there all day Thursday. Yeah, I'm not quite sure when this truck's going home. I've got a little bit of tidy up, finish up work to do on it. And then I think the owner's still working on juggling vehicles at his house to make room for it to come home. I've had it way too long. Whew. I am beat this evening. We had a 100 series come in, and it came in for the auto height control having failed. And we were inspecting it, trying to find the auto height control leak, and Crash noticed that the front pinion seal was leaking like a sieve. And so I was like, hey, check the fluid. And he did, and the front diff was completely empty. So we ended up rebuilding that diff this morning, and then a knuckle rebuild along with it. So it's been a long day. And to Dave, yes, I prefer the factory gaskets for exhaust. They just seem to fit better and last longer. Yeah. I'm cooking too right now. But I'm cooking spaghetti squash taco boats. I will not be eating the spaghetti squash portion of this, but I've got them in the oven, so they're ready when my wife gets home. But yeah, I'll get sidetracked. Back to Dave. Yeah, the factory gaskets just seem to hold up way better. When we first started using the MagnaFlow downpipes on the 80s, we were using, the gaskets that come supplied with them. And I think every one of those we've ended up having to replace because they've all blown out. When we put factory gaskets back in, and no problem since. So they're a little bit more expensive, but you don't have to go in there again. So now I try to keep all the 80 series exhaust gaskets in stock at the shop because we go through them quite a bit. And I try to keep the little rubber isolator mount things in stock too, because it never fails that you go in there to work on one and one of the mounts is broken. And isn't it too cold outside to be grilling? I'm getting more suggestions for truck names on Instagram. Some of them are out there. Tightening sequence for the valve cover bolts on an LX450. I don't think there is one. I don't recall, from all the times I've done head gaskets on those, I don't recall ever having seen an actual sequence for the valve cover bolts. I usually, start all of them loosely and then do the center two, and I work my way out from the center crisscross until I've got them all snugged down, and then I go around in a circle, just to make sure I didn't forget any. But I can't recall ever having actually seen a specific sequence. I go center out and bounce back and forth in like an X. Like I'll do the center two, and then I'll do like this one and this one, and then this one and this one, and just keep bouncing out like that. And And then by the time you get to the outside, your center ones will probably be loose because the gasket's compressed more. So I go around in a circle just to make sure they're all snug and happy. And yeah, I don't know why I do center out. It just seemed like the appropriate method. That's the way I've always done them, and it's always worked out well. Um, and it's probably just because that's the way the head bolts go, is center out when you're tightening them up. So I just follow that with the valve cover gasket. Yeah, no problem. Hopefully that was helpful, and hopefully it's correctish, because I've never actually seen a listed procedure. It just says install valve cover. What's the torque? Well, I can't actually look up the torque here at home because I can't get on the information system when I'm not at the shop because they've cracked it down and I can only get on from one IP address. I don't actually torque the 80 series valve cover bolts. I just do them snug. You'll feel the metal lip of the valve cover, touch the head, and then snug. If I had to guess, I probably am doing like 7 or 8 foot-pounds on them. But yeah, I use a 1/4 inch ratchet, short ratchet, down till they're touching, and then just snug. It's kind of a feel thing. But I would guess it's in the 7 to 8 foot-pound neighborhood. Is at least, by feel. But yeah, I've never actually looked for the torque on those, so there may not be one listed. If you've got the FSM and you go to the back, it'll list torque spec by bolt size. So like if you absolutely want the torque and you can't find the torque in the manual, you can find it by that. But yeah, I don't even know that it's a 1/4 of a turn past hand tight. That may be a bit too tight. Those bolts are really easy to break. But yeah, the valve cover's got little stands, if you want to call them that come down and touch when it's properly compressed. Dave wants to know if we've gotten any cool new tools lately. I'm trying to think. I don't think I have. I got a steel cutting skill saw when I started building the bumper, which is very awesome but very scary. And I got a new pair of really long, basically pipe pliers for doing tie rod ends. But that's it. I can't think of anything new and exciting. No, the skill saw I got was a Evolution. The Milwaukee is probably the better choice, but the Evolution one fit the budget, and for as little as I'm going to use it, seems like it's going to be perfectly serviceable. I've been real happy with it so far. We did get fancy new video lights for the shop for filming videos, and the 80 series knuckle rebuild we shot today was the first time I've used those, and I was real happy with the way those worked. there's a whole bunch of tools on the wish list for the shop, but most of them are outside of the budget. So until I become a millionaire, it's going to be a slow pace on new tools for the shop. I guess we got a new blast cabinet since you've been out last. When will the Knuckle rebuild video be out? Finished filming it mere moments before coming home to do live chat. I still reek of Burfield grease because I haven't gotten a shower yet. I just changed clothes to be presentable. It'll probably take me a couple of days to edit all the clips together. I'm hoping to have it out by the weekend. You know, assuming nothing is terribly wrong with the footage. But yeah, should be hopefully out by the weekend. Whew. That is high dollar for the chassis grease. That stuff is awesome. But wow. Yeah, I haven't ordered more from him since I went through that initial can, and I really, really like that grease, but not sure I can justify the cost of that into a knuckle rebuild. But yeah, Bino is super awesome at finding the weird Japanese stuff. Yeah, I probably could. I've been trying to do, like, on our website, like parts lists as I go along on the different videos. But yeah, I haven't done one for the knuckle kits yet. But yeah, I just use the Terrain Tamer knuckle rebuild kits, their Burfields, their drive flanges, when I do them. Best rebuild kit for power steering gearbox. That is a good question. I've never actually rebuilt one. I've always sent them out for rebuild. I actually built the special tool to take the sector shaft nut out, but haven't actually used it yet. If you can still get the OEM parts, I would absolutely use the OEM parts over anything aftermarket. I've never been super impressed with Gates's parts. So yeah, we use OEM for everything available when we can. I haven't looked them up though to see if they're still available. Heat blowing out a bit from top vents when dial is set to floor vents. 200 Land Cruiser. So the 2000 Land Cruiser. So the 100 series doesn't use cable actuated vents like the old school stuff did. It's all little servo motors on the flapper doors. And I haven't had to go in and replace any of them yet, at least not on a Land Cruiser. Back when I did general service, I did quite a few in American vehicles. But my guess is either one of the servo motors isn't working or one of the flaps is stuck slightly, and it's stuck enough that the servo motor can't completely flip it properly from one mode to the other. At least that would be my guess. And I'm trying to think. It's been a while. It's probably been a year and a half, 2 years since I had the dash out and a part on 100 series. I don't think any of the servos are easily accessible with the dash in the truck. And I'm trying to think of a good way you would check. And I am drawing a blank on an easy way to check what is stuck. If there is anything stuck, that's just my guess. Is that you've probably got a flapper stuck, or one of the servo motors is broken. And fellows, RJ wants to know what my work background is. So, God, over 20 years ago now, I was going to community college for engineering. Realized I was not good enough at math for engineering, so switched over to like drafting and welding. Applied for a part-time gig at a shop, wanting to be mechanics helper. Ended up being a body shop helper, and fell into liking doing body and collision. So I spent a decade doing collision and restoration work, and bouncing over to the mechanical side and doing mechanical work when the collision side was slow. Bounced back and forth on that for about a decade. In about the middle there, I had a side shop, like part-time, where I did like roll cages and suspension and bumpers and stuff on Land Cruisers, like as a night and weekends gig. And then I guess 8 years ago, I switched over to working for myself, doing purely mechanical. And we switched to doing basically just Land Cruiser about 5 years ago. We'll get the occasional random vehicle in, but I guess for like the last 2 years, we've been like 99% Land Cruiser. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question. Any suggestions for cleaning throttle body on an LX450? Not sure what can be hit with cleaner versus not, or what should be removed. I wouldn't disassemble it. I've had good luck just using spray throttle body cleaner. GM actually makes a really nice spray throttle body cleaner that you can get from the GM parts department that works exceedingly well for cleaning throttle bodies. And I just, open the throttle blades and spray in there and rinse it out. Going for much of a deeper dive than that, you're asking for trouble. And Eric says, service the rear diff. Fluid looked pretty good, but there was a small amount of metallic powder on it. Yeah, that's pretty normal. They call it swarf. It's just, it's the gears wearing in and the break-in. Because your truck may not have ever had the diff changed. But yeah, it's normal to see some, if it's fine and powdery, you're good. If you've got chunks and big flakes, start worrying. But it's normal for there to be almost like graphite looking powder on there. It's way easy to go overboard with the while you're in there items. You can pull the smaller parts that are bolted onto it, but the way the passages are, I don't know that you're going to get that much benefit out of trying to pull them apart and clean the passages, especially pulling the throttle position sensor, trying to get that back calibrated, because it isn't a straight bolt on. It actually spins on its bolts to calibrate. Can be more of a pain than the benefit you would get from taking it out to clean everything in there. So I would basically just clean the blades clean the throttle blade and clean around it. And that should be sufficient. And yeah, if you look like graphite, you're good. I would not take the upper half of the 80 intake off if you don't have to. Every one we've ever taken off for head gaskets is gross inside. and when we've got them off, we throw them through the parts washer. But I honestly don't think you'll see any real world benefit of cleaning it. You're just going to get blow by and fumes back up in there again. The only reason I would take it apart or take it off to try to clean it is if the EGR passage was just completely clogged. But usually they clog right where it makes that 90-degree turn behind where the throttle body bolts up. So if you take the throttle body off, that passage is open on the end, and you can just take a pick and pick the chunks out and get it cleared back out. But I wouldn't take it apart to clean it, just to clean it, unless you're just super bored. I don't like taking them off when I have to take them off. Yeah, because the valve cover gasket, you don't have to take the upper intake plenum off. You can just do the throttle body. So I would leave the intake together unless you had an issue that was making you take it off. Like, you needed to replace injectors. Although you can get the injectors out without taking the upper plenum off. It's just a pain. Trying to think of any other reason you would take that upper intake off. Yeah, I guess, unless you had to get into the vacuum switching valves for the EGR or something like that, I wouldn't mess with it. I think you just like taking things apart on your truck. And I'm not quite getting Phil's question, but we have had to rewrap the engine harness on several 80s where it goes past the EGR. And normally we do it just as a matter of course when we're doing a head gasket. Since we have the harness out anyway, we rewrap it while it's out. Rotational clunk when the rig's moving forward. Does it just clunk once? Or is it a rhythmic clunk? And to answer Brian's question, the Terrain Tamer knuckle kit is enough to do both sides. It's everything you need to do both sides of the knuckles. Okay, then yes, we have rewrapped the wiring harness. Yeah, we do it anytime we've got the head gasket apart, and we've had to do a couple, for injector issues where it was shorting out. Recommended things to do when replacing fuel sending unit. I would do, the gasket where it goes into the top of the tank. I would do a filter at the other end, like at the engine end, and the filter sock. If your pump is good, I don't know that I would mess with doing the pump. And you can get the Denso aftermarket ones, and they hold up quite well, and are probably the same as the OEM. Into Joshua's. Continued, but based on speed or wheel rotation. That's a weird one. I would check your U-joints, check the drive shaft slip yokes, and, possibly rear, like the e-brake hardware in the rear drum to see if there's something clunking around in there. I've seen the springs come loose and they'll swing around under there. And to fill, would it be easy to rewrap the harness with the upper intake off? It doesn't really matter. It's not terrible to do with everything in place. You can, if you undo it from the firewall, you can get enough play to do it with everything together. Cool. And yeah, Dave, if you're coming down Thursday, just give me a heads up and we'll make sure we're there. But yeah, and my oven is beeping, so I'm going to go run and check dinner real quick to make sure I don't burn it. I will be right back. Cool. Sorry about that. Cooking dinner. My wife's working late tonight, so I got to get everything started. Sounds beef from the front. I wouldn't think the e-brake would resonate up to the front. I guess it could. Does it change sound with the engine at all, or is it only based on vehicle speed? Because I've also heard the power steering pump, either the pump itself starting to go, and it'll make like a rhythmic chunking noise. Or I've actually seen one where somebody broke one of the teeth off the power steering pump gears, and it made a really weird noise. But those were both related to engine speed. So my wife is having spaghetti squash taco boats. I don't eat spaghetti squash. That stuff's disgusting. So I will be having sloppy joes made out of the same filling as what's going in the spaghetti squash boat. Only speed, not push to past. That's a really weird one. Without hearing it, I'm not sure. One other thing that might be the your drive flanges could be stripped, like where the Burfield comes through the wheel bearings, and then the drive shaft hooks it to the wheel hub. If the splines on that are stripped, you could be hearing the splines popping past one another. I've never actually seen one in person bad enough to strip and slip. But I could see that making that noise. But yeah, without hearing it, I don't know. But you could like take the little dust cap off of the front drive flange, jack up the tire, and rock the tire back and forth and see how much slop you've got between the stub of the Burfield and the drive flange. And it shouldn't really move much at all, just enough to like slip everything together. The truck we did the knuckles on today probably had a good 5 or 6 degrees, maybe more, and his splines were pretty worn out on the side that was shot. So that could be it. But yeah, if you want, if you get a video up, shoot me a link to the video, and I can take a listen and maybe give you a guess as to what's going on. Yeah, preventative maintenance is always a good thing. We just picked up a Shop 80, and that's definitely where most of my time will be spent. I want to get the thing baseline before I start modifying it. MMA is wondering about rebuilding the Breakmaster cylinder on 100 series. I've seen the Breakmaster cylinder rebuild kits. I haven't had occasion to use one yet. Every time we've had to replace or get into a 100 series Breakmaster, it's been due to like an electrical failure on the ABS side of things, or the pump controller, or not pump controller, the actual accumulator pump. So we've replaced the whole unit, and I've replaced just the pump motor, but I haven't actually had one with a leaking actual master cylinder bore to have to go through and mess with that. It's not a fun bleed procedure to go through once you're done. But yeah, I would definitely try doing a rebuild on it before you forked out 2,200 for the whole unit. It's definitely worth a shot. I've seen people do it. I just haven't had one with a leaking master come in that needed a rebuild to actually do it. Ours have always been on the pump side of things. Yeah, the actual procedure for taking everything apart and putting it back together isn't bad. But when you're in that far, you technically need TechStream or a scan tool that'll bleed the ABS module through, because it'll actually use the accumulator to power bleed everything through the solenoids. Oh, cool. And glad the distributor O-ring video was helpful. It was one of those, we do a ton of those, and I'm like, I should probably record one of these while I'm doing it. But then it seemed like a really boring video, so I wasn't sure I was even going to post it, but threw it up there anyway. To lock the center diff, do you have the center diff lock button? Because that's the easiest way. And I'm jumping over to check dinner again real quick. Be right back. I'm not entirely certain what spaghetti squash looks like when it's done, but I don't think that's it. So it's been forever since I've tried to lock a center diff in an 80 without the diff locker. I'm pretty sure when you put it in low range, it locks the center diff. but I am not positive. Now that I actually have an 80, I should be more up on these things. That sounds more like an ABS issue than rack and pinion. Although there's also some of those have like a variable rack gear motor thing up in the dash. So it may be something dealing with that. I would pull codes and go with what the codes are saying, or at least use those to lead you in the diagnostic rather than throwing a rack in it. At least first, the racks are rather expensive and are not fun to change. And yes, I picked up a very rough 80 series over the weekend. Yeah, I mean, the center diff lock button can be useful, but if you're not really wheeling it, I don't know that I would go through ordering it just because. Yeah, even though the rack is a common issue, I would still go through and check the codes first. I know one of the local guys here is dealing with the weird electric booster gear thingy, and it's got a really long acronym. It's like VGRS. And I think that's what his was doing. And from what I understand, it's between the steering wheel, like somewhere up in the column, and the rack. But I haven't actually messed with one yet, so I don't know. But there's no electrical going to the rack on a 100 series. You know, it's purely hydraulic. So I would think if it was having electrical issues, it would be either ABS related or further up the column. I could be completely wrong, though. Oh, and that's a good call by Phil. That driving, basically you could drive just from the rear and likely wouldn't hear the front being stripped out. It's not time yet. You guys need to lay down. We're in the shop with the lift, so I always do it the lazy way and just pop the center cap off and look. But yeah, if you could just lock the center diff, that would be easier. I would think that would be helpful. Because everything would be, well, I don't know, because you'd be driving the front and rear, you'd be splitting the front and rear 50-50, but if one drive flange is stripped more than the other, then the power on the front axle is going to go to the least resistance. So if you've got one good drive flange holding, you could still hear the stripped side. So yeah, I would probably just pop a center cap off, one of the center desk caps off, to be sure. That would probably be the easiest, most sure way of doing it. Yeah, we get the Lexuses, we get the LCs. We pretty much they're the same thing. Once you get into the newer stuff, there's some differences. But yeah, we do both, the Lexus and the LC. And to MMA, I would not get a non-OEM steering rack. I haven't played around with it in the Toyota world, but when I was doing, general service, the aftermarket steering racks were just absolutely terrible. Like you'd get them that either would leak or wouldn't work or only worked in one direction. You'd go through 3 or 4 before you got one that kind of worked. Whereas, when I've gone to using the Toyota ones, they don't leak and they work every time. Like a Toyota. So yeah, I would not use an aftermarket rack. When you pull the center dust cap off, you'll be able to see the end of the stub axle sticking out from the flange. So, jack up whatever tire, off the ground that you've taken the dust cap off of, and just spin the tire. And if there's excessive slop, you'll be able to see the flange move, but the axle shaft won't. So you'll be able to see slop between the flange and the axle shaft. There should be very minimal play between the two. If you've got, a lot of slop, it should be pretty easy to tell. And if you take the drive flange all the way off, the splines, look like little castle teeth, where when they're really worn out, they become really sharp triangle points. And it's pretty easy to see them when they're slopped out. I'm trying to think. I don't know anybody down in Florida. Depending on how far down in Florida you are, there's ACC in, I think they're in Atlanta, but that's the nearest that I can think of, being that far south. I also wouldn't try rebuilding the rack and pinion myself. Not that it can't be done, but it just seems like something that's really easy to mess up. Yeah, they can be. There's a lot of moving little parts that have to be just right in there. Yeah, our local dealership sends us 60 series, and they've kicked some 80s our way as well. But yeah, I can't believe they've never seen one. That's crazy. And I'm beeping again. I will be right back. Okay, I'm going to call those good. Oh, and never mind the boxes behind me. I just realized when I got up, you can see all the boxes. We're in the middle of Christmas decorating. So it's all the random stuff out of the attic. Beeping oven timer. I'm cooking spaghetti squash for Angel, and I probably shouldn't have been left in charge of cooking spaghetti squash because I'm really not sure what it's supposed to look like. So I just poked it with a fork. It seems pretty squishy, so I'm going to call that good. I prefer the all work by me way of doing things. Then you know it's done the way you'd want to do it, and you know who to blame when it's wrong. And Alexi, does that mean you don't want to come over for dinner tonight? You don't want vegetarian tacos? Yeah, going through the truck and doing the work yourself, it's really helpful. You know, when when you go through it, you know all of its quirks. You know everything about the truck. So when it breaks down on the road or when it breaks down out in the woods, you've got an idea of what you're looking for. It's not just squash, it's squash boats. Yeah, I can cook macaroni and cheese and fondue, and that's about it. And no problem to Christian. Thanks for tuning in. I have fun doing the Tuesday chats, even if they do kind of go off the rails a bit with squash preparations. Yeah, that was not my idea. But yeah, they're going to get filled with, I guess, veggie crumbles and beans and corn. So I will be using that filling to make a burrito or a sandwich or something because, yeah, I do not like squash. Where to get a knuckle alignment tool? The factory one got discontinued. Like the one we've got is the factory one, and it went discontinued a couple of years ago. You might be able to find one on eBay if you really, really watch. But Trail Tailor, I think it's www.trailtailor.com, is reproducing them. So as far as I know, last time I checked, you can get them from him. And thanks for the thanks on the videos, and thanks from Joshua. Yeah, and once you get the engine all wrapped up, shoot some video and shoot me a link, and I'll see if I can tell anything by the sound it's making. And no problem. And I'm going to go ahead and jump off of here for the evening, so I can finish getting dinner ready because my wife texted me. She's on her way home, and she's had a long day, probably longer than my day, because she didn't get to play with Land Cruisers all day. But anyway, appreciate everybody that tuned in for chat. It's always fun hanging out and talking to people. But yeah, thanks for tuning in. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe below. And if you'd like to help support the channel and making more videos and better video stuff, please check out our Patreon link down in the description below. And I'll catch you guys next Tuesday. I appreciate it. Thanks.